Epistemology call-in show. I've got Gina and Rosemary here. Hello, Gina. Hello, Rosemary. Tell us stuff about you.
Hello. For me?
Either one. You can arm wrestle over it.
I live
we
in
could have
Pittsburgh.
a cat cuteness contest to win it.
And we have a cat cuteness contest. I have two cats who are going to probably be very distracting for a little bit. I first got interested in history of epistemology stuff about 2 years ago, so I spent a lot of time watching videos, and I'm glad to get to start doing a little bit more here with you.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Hey, Gina, how about you? What's you up to?
I'm not up to much right now. The last time I practiced in person was over a month ago, and I've just been watching and practicing a little bit on the Discord server.
Cool.
Right,
Discord server is a good place for that.
Yeah.
Especially on Saturdays. We have on the Discord server, there's two
practice sessions of 2 hours each on Saturdays. The first one is at 2 p.m. I think it's at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and the other one at 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
Yeah, the second one is specifically the Australia-friendly event. Oftentimes run by Australians. That's probably not an Australian accent. That probably sucks.
It'd be nice to have more people who can host. So if you've been practicing there a while, you can hit up me or any other host on the Discord server and ask, I'd like to give it a go. It just helps to have more heads, especially if you represent either SE in Australia or in Europe, which is the other friendly time, in the afternoon. Please give us a shout. And we have Sasha.
Hello, Sasha.
Hello.
So we're open for calls. We're here for 2 hours. You can talk to us, about us, around us. Jesus Christ says you need us to spread the message of love. Yes. Well, we might need you to call in and help us with that message, because it's a bit of a game of telephone. I keep hearing a slightly different message of love. So I want to hear from each person, see if we can work that out. Hello, wet hens. Good to see you. My hens are both dry. And my rooster. Okay, Jesus Christ will call, but promise not to talk over you. Okay, well, mostly we're pretty good about that generally. I bring it. Can you see the invitation? Copy and paste that so that you can come in via your browser. Jesus needs the message out there. Okay. And until Jesus comes, there's something in there. Don't know. Anyway, so do either of you have any topics that you wanted to bring tonight as topics between people?
I don't know if you wanted to, because we never actually revealed my one last time, if you wanted to talk about that, or if Jeannie has something else. I don't know where I stuck it, but I generally remember what I wrote down.
Yeah, in general, you gave a blind SE, and we asked the questions that got down to some of the epistemologies without actually knowing what it was. And I never did figure out. I didn't end up having a good clue. You were very good at keeping it quiet.
Yeah, it was was Quaid there? Is that
I
who
believe
was?
so. I think it was Quaid.
Yeah. So he got the closest of asking if it was politics related, which it was.
Mhm.
And so basically, just since I wrote it down, I don't know where I stuck it. It was a concern about our democratic norm is to not prosecute former presidents
Mm-hmm.
for acts done in office. And the question for me is like my confidence in that,
Mm-hmm.
following that, has dropped because we are in an unprecedented time with Trump and the things that have been happening. And it's like, I think it's very problematic for the FBI to have raided him, but at the same time, because of that principle, but at the same time, it's problematic for him to have those documents, so they have to get them back. So balancing the optics and national interest, difficult.
All right. What's the downside? What is the actual optics downside of, I guess, rating him for stuff like that?
I would say that the downside is it's firing up his base, and we don't know where that's going to lead as far as
we're afraid of
January 6th.
a public reaction that would be
Public reaction.
difficult.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's in the short term. The long term, my concern would be what happens when the parties flip, and that's become, they say, well, they did it, so now we do it, even though none of this was at all political. It's still that perception of politics.
I see. What is this whole channel about first? Sure, we are about street epistemology, which is a way to have conversations with people, attempting to get to why they believe things, the reasons behind the reasons behind the reasons, and have them evaluate those reasons, see if they still like them. Oftentimes we cruise through life believing our beliefs and thinking about it one layer deep. And just talking about them 2 or 3 layers deep can sometimes get us to go, wait a minute, there's one little thing about my thing. And when we think about those deep things, we sometimes come to better ideas on our own. And that ripples through. We end up unlearning some reasons to believe things. Like when I was a child, my first major epistemology was believe my parents, they know everything. Later on, I had Santa Claus moments, and I come to discount that particular epistemology. It's not completely wrong. It's just not nearly as reliable as other ones. So street epistemology is about having conversations that go there. And in this case, we are making reference to a claim that we were trying to do a weird thing with, where we were examining a claim without knowing the claim, where the claimant is keeping it to themselves, but still telling us some of the reasons and the categories of information behind it, and being able to have a meta conversation without actually knowing the details. I think mostly that's a demonstration of that street epistemology doesn't have to be concerned about the actual results of the claim, or, for example, the examiner's opinion about the claim can be completely neutral, and you can still get to good examples of critical thinking. How is that for the 3-minute version?
I think that was good.
Okay. So we're waiting for anybody to give a call. Oh, yes. This was Sasha was saying that they wish we did more SE on their server. Seems like only 1 day a week. And there's lots of SE that happens outside scheduled events where somebody just says, I'd like to claim. Would somebody like to interrogate me on this claim? Or I'd like to interrogate somebody on any claim of the something. And they work out conversations in there happening all around, one-on-one conversations. Oftentimes people don't want to call into a public kind of show because the thing that they're talking about is something that they don't want to go public about or think about in ways that people that don't like them might, snap little things out and throw them on Twitter. So you can have conversations that are like that. So Cynthia, hold up 3 fingers for me. Thank you. How you doing, Cynthia?
Wait, hold on. I'm getting messed up on the sound here.
Your sound is good.
I'm doing freaking phenomenally. How are you guys doing?
We are doing great.
I got to tell you, I've only actually seen your show once when you had Mark McCormick on.
Okay.
And it was really, really good. I love the way you handled it. Like, you were just so open, and I am grateful for that. So thank you all for doing the things that you do.
Cool. I'm trying to remember who Mark McCormick is.
The Hegel guy, Hegel SOS.
Oh, yes. Spirit Man. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then did you see the conversation on Quaid's channel? What's your argument with Mark?
Oh, I don't have an argument with Mark. I'm just saying that was the only episode that I ever won.
Quaid's channel is What's Your Argument? That's the name of his channel.
Oh, duh.
Oh, that's fine. So yeah, I don't need that. The other thing, yeah.
I'm pretty quick most of the time, but every once in a while there's a lag in the system.
When you're right. Indeed. Yeah, we had I should say, I was pushing buttons in the background, but it was he and Quaid had a nice conversation for about 2 hours and went way deep into his stuff. So we got to really hear him deeply. I bet we can find a link to that if we want. Anyway, so Cynthia, what would you like to bring?
Well, y'all are talking about beliefs, and I have a couple of different theories I'd like to throw into the mix for discussion if you're open to it.
Yes.
Well, so far I've concluded on it is sort of a combination between Hume's fledgling God theory and the Gnostic version of God, and simulation theory. Like, I would say that we live within a simulation that is powered by conscious energy, which is everything that exists.
Okay, so we live in a simulation. That simulation is powered by conscious energy. That conscious energy is coming from everything that exists. So it's powered from inside?
I'm sorry?
So it's powered from inside the simulation? The conscious energy is us that are in the simulation?
Yes. Everything vibrates, everything moves. And I also believe that energy presents itself as love to the self. Like what we feel when we are connected to it is love.
Okay.
That's what I think so far. And as far as the fledgling God concept, if one takes into consideration that they say we are in the image of God, and we are always constantly in the process of learning, growing, becoming. And this is also where the Gnostic God version comes in, because it's in the process of learning, knowing, becoming. So yeah, that's what I've concluded on thus far.
Okay. Rosemary or Gina, would you like to investigate this one? Would you like to do SE on this claim?
Either or.
Rosemary, how about you start and just call me if you want me to jump in.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. All right. Hi, Cynthia. I'm Rosemary.
Hi, Rosemary. I'm so grateful to be talking to your beautiful, shiny self.
Oh, thank you. I'm grateful to talk to you, too. I don't have as much experience with this as Dali does, but I think I would like to start. What is your confidence level in your claim, or which part of those claims would you like to look at?
My confidence level is 100% until I'm presented with evidence to suggest otherwise.
Okay.
So I'm open. I'm a philosophy person, so
yeah.
I'm willing to travel in the rabbit holes.
Gotcha. All right. So with your 100% confidence, what are the things, like, say, maybe your top 3 reasons right now that you are at that confidence level?
Well, at the risk of sounding a bit woo-woo, I had this experience that where I actually saw the grid in which we reside. That's number one, and then it went on for about 9 months. I guess some people refer to it as dark night of the soul, and a lot of really crazy things happened. And so yeah, that's it. I would tell you that I don't really need faith, because I firmly believe that there is a God, depending on how you define that term. Like, I don't believe in a sky daddy or anything like that, but I do believe that there is something.
So it kind of like you sense something transcendent, or how?
Well, I would say I actually experienced it. Some of the craziness that happened. Um, do you know what tongues are? When people speak in tongues?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
familiar.
I always thought that was just a bunch of hoo-hoo, like really. And then at one point during the course of this experience, like my vibration level apparently was high enough that I could actually understand what people were saying when they spoke in tongues. Like, it was crazy. And yes, one might say, oh well, so it was in a language you would understand, but when you're talking about universal truth, yeah, it's going to communicate with you any way it wants to. It's got everybody's number. It's like Verizon, only better.
Gotcha. You said something about vibration level. I've met people who talk about vibrations. So, can you tell me a little bit about how that works? I guess because I'm not even familiar with it, and how that fits into your current belief.
Well, I am not even close to what one would call a physicist, but it is my understanding, having talked to people who know a lot more about it than I do, that everything does in fact vibrate, everything does in fact move, and if you actually read Hermes Trismegistus, the Emerald Tablets, or the Book of Thoth, who essentially they're the same person. You can, like one of the first rules of the Hermetics, the 7 rules of the Hermetics is everything vibrates, everything moves, and that's what physics says too. So you can't really argue with it too much.
So we found things that seem to match with the ancient texts. I'm assuming these are somewhat older texts.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
yeah,
as familiar with all the tests.
I actually just told an author the other day, Roger Lay, and I told him, I haven't read any of your books, but don't take it personally. It's only because you're not dead. And even if you were dead, you wouldn't have been dead long enough. I have a 2,000-year minimum.
I see. So, does meditation or something like that, is that what you did to experience the vibration, or was there some other event that happened?
What happened was I found philosophy. I spent 55 years of my life banging around. I did my time as a drug addict. I was an alcoholic, as an overall ne'er-do-well, and quite frankly, I was so traumatized that I just didn't feel anymore. And that was both physically and emotionally. I just didn't feel. And to point to one of those incidences, I got sucked off the back of the motorcycle, kind of knocked my jaw out of place, popped it back in, and just continued on with my night. And now,
Right.
being the person that I am now, I would look at her and go, "Oh my goodness, what's wrong with her? You poor unfortunate soul."
Well, I'm glad you're okay now.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Like my life is so much better now since I found philosophy. Because I would say that philosophy is everything. We are the philosophies by which we speak, and to a greater or lesser degree.
Yeah, I can kind of resonate with that, because I remember when I was studying philosophy, sometimes when you get really into a text, like it does kind of feel, just kind of excitement and knowledge and like making connections. So that makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, not only that, but when you realize that they're all essentially talking about how to be happy.
Right.
This is how you live a happy life. This is what you have to do to be happy. Nobody listens to them apparently, but it's there. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, and the other thing that really interested me about it was that nothing ever changes. We are experiencing the same problems to a greater or lesser degree than people 2,000 years ago did. So at some point, you would think we would break the cycle, but apparently we haven't decided to do that yet.
We're still building, and sometimes you lose track of what, we don't always understand what they wrote over time. because we've lost some of that knowledge that got passed on orally.
Well, not only, yeah, and some of it has been actively destroyed, and I would say a lot of it has been programmed out of us. With the what the Adorno School would call the spectacleization of society. Everybody is so hyper focused on these things that they believe they need that they don't. First of all, don't know what they really need, and second of all, are not going to find it where they're looking.
And then I also heard you back at the beginning. You said talked about the dark night of the soul.
Mhm.
Are you thinking of like I'm familiar with that from like Saint John of the Cross,
Mhm.
but I was wondering if you like what your experience was and how that is part of your reason for your current belief.
Well, alrighty, if you want to get into it.
Sure.
You look like you're sitting down, but I'm going to check to make sure.
I am definitely sitting down.
Okay. Well, it all started with philosophy, and I was actually sitting on the couch, and a lot of this is going to sound like insane, and I promise you, I was not doing hallucinogenics. I do smoke marijuana, but I've been smoking marijuana for many, many years. Never has this happened. And truthfully, I don't really smoke enough. I smoke for pain management, but that's another story altogether. So I was sitting on the couch of my living room, thinking about what I was going to write in this philosophy paper that I was working on, and I was watching Bob's Burgers, and the next thing I knew, I saw this giant, the part of the giant wheel that could fit inside of my trailer in my living room, and I could see the grid, like the trailer was inside the grid. The grid was not inside the trailer. Like you could see where it cut off in the squares. And if you look in any architecture magazine, you can see a very similar representation of that. Further down the road, I had this experience where I could literally feel all of the trauma, bias, core belief, and preconceptions come off of myself. I could see it brilliant red in the void. I would be talking to people, and suddenly they would change into sort of a golem, kind of a thing, and they would be surrounded by blackness that was not representative of the absence of light, but was representative of the absorption of light, and that was surrounded by an even more brilliant light, and then there was this one moment, which is really what brings me to God, or what one would call God, a higher being. However you want to think about it. Like God is everything. Everything is God. Yeah, you're a God. I'm a God. We're on a planet full of God. Nobody's special because we're all gods. But there was this moment, and I honestly don't know how long it lasted, where I felt as if I was in a very small room with all of the love that I had ever generated in the course of my life, and all of the love that had generated, and all of the love that had generated, like just magnified to where I was literally just in an ocean of love. Like I came out of it and speechless. And some call it ecstatic union with truth. Some call it, you can call it whatever you want to. Until someone shows me evidence to the contrary, I have no reason to believe that there isn't something.
So when you had this experience, do you think that there was anything, because you talked a lot about vibration and I had asked you about that, and you said physics. Is there anything beyond what the physical world that you think is involved here, or is this a sort of just your sense of experiencing, like kind of like a pantheistic experience? So is there like a separate supernatural, or is it all part of this existence?
Well, see, I don't believe in supernatural, because if it's happening, then it's obviously natural.
Yeah. Then it's natural. Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that. So yeah,
like you can say what you want, but if you see a girl ghost standing in front of you, then it's obviously natural. Sorry. Because people get so caught up in terms, and and they're so dismissive of terms that don't seem like that they could potentially be part of their world. But as a beautiful philosophy professor I had once said, if we lived in a world where fairies were hanging around all the time, we wouldn't think fairies were so absurd.
right. Which, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then thankfully Dali popped up the claim, it was a good reminder. So is there a way that you would define the consciousness so that you're having that experience, I guess it would be a universal consciousness?
Yeah.
I remember you saying that God is learning.
Yeah.
As goes.
Yeah. Although I would say I think we're reaching some sort of turning point. I feel like we're on the precipice of a pretty tremendous change in just our overall way of being, and perhaps it is, because it would make sense if time truly is cyclical. Because the ancient philosophers talked about a people that they referred to as the ancients, and apparently they lived in a very utopian-esque society. Like there was no war, everybody had enough stuff, everybody had a place to be, and they were just living their lives. And then at some point they abdicated responsibility to one, and what do we know about power and abundance is that it insulates and corrupts. So.
And do you think there is a way to test this outside of an individual's personal experience, or is it something that just comes down to each person's experience?
Well, I can tell you that the philosophers have been talking about it for thousands of years. If you read it, and of course they were doing it within the realm of trying not to be burned at the stake by the church. Like it's tough to speak truth when you got Big Brother breathing down your neck. But if you read Plotinus, Love and Beauty, like he talks about the shiny things, like the things that I was just talking about, surrounded by darkness with the light. Like the philosophers have been talking about it for thousands of years, and perhaps you have to actually have the experience to be able to see it in the text, because you automatically can identify with what they're talking about, or perhaps it is a bias of some sort. I don't know, but yeah, I would say it can absolutely be found there, and Blavatsky actually covers some of it. Socrates and Plato, I kind of think of them as the same person, although historically speaking, they were in fact two people.
Yeah, there's some debate, like, did Socrates really exist? That story.
Well, Socrates did really exist. There is historical records of him having fought in the Peloponnesian War.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the side if he existed, but it's funny because we don't have his writing, so that opens it up. I guess I think my last question with this has been really interesting.
Oh my goodness, yes. I'm so grateful for this. Thank you for letting me be here. Would you like to come on my show?
Maybe, I don't know. We'll find out. We'll get. Maybe I'll have Dali get your information.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. So my last question was: is there what kind of evidence do you think you would need to disconfirm this belief? Because you said, until you have that evidence, it's going to be your belief.
I would need an explanation for every single part of the experience that I had. Like I would need a scientific explanation for every single part of it, and there were parts that just cannot be explained at this time. Because part of it, it was. Are you familiar with Catholicism?
Yes, I grew up Catholic. So
okay, so you are familiar with the Assumption of Mary?
Yes.
Okay, the day of the Assumption of Mary, while I was going through this process, because the person that actually pointed me in the direction of truth was Catholic, and had invited me to church. And I got kind of involved, because you know how you do, you start checking things out. I'm looking for the religion that aligns with my beliefs, kind of a thing. So I went to church the day of the Assumption of Mary, and I remember waking up that morning and thinking, I don't really feel like getting out of bed. If I am supposed to be there, give me a sign. And I heard guitar strings in my ear. Like, nobody lived in my house but me, and I don't play guitar. So I got up, I got dressed, and I was pretty close to. Well, it was right after that the really, really ugly part of Dark Night of the Soul started. But I went to church. I got out of the car, and apparently I was dawdling, because I literally felt something grab the front of my dress and start pulling me into that church. Like, my arms were flopping out behind me and everything. It was crazy. So when science can explain stuff like that,
then okay,
I'm open to it.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. This was a really fun conversation for me. I enjoyed it.
Oh, me too. I am so grateful. But yeah, I will. Where would you like me to send my information?
Can you see the private chat? The one that most recently says, Cynthia, can you put your email email address?
I do see it.
Yes. Type to us.
Yes.
Don't leave. I can take you off the show and leave you where you can type in the private chat, and you and Gina can work out contact information.
Sounds
Okay.
great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think Love is supposed to be on here at some point, but there's also some ribs I hear about. So I will speak briefly to Sasha's question that happened in between. Look this up.
It had to do, I think, with whether like truth claims or reality claims are different from moral claims in Missy.
Yeah. And I'm going to call this the David Hume question. You can't get an ought from an is. Things about is I'm good with physicists measuring, or maybe social scientists, that sort of thing, where they're going to do qualitative and quantitative epistemology. Truth is that which can be measured and objectively reproduced with high confidence and statistics and things. Whereas moral claims are something like, we ought to do this for this reason. So we have to pick some kind of a good that we want to improve, and then we can make a moral claim saying, to serve that good, we do this. We make drunk driving illegal, whatever. So the decision tree as to how you choose moral claims are different. Well, what I think of as the epistemology is different. The epistemology is like political, and what's true is what we think will serve the right goods or serve the right interests, as compared to the chemical formula for water or something. The way we investigate these claims is different. So if somebody comes to me with a factual claim about the world, then a lot of inbound things are like, what kind of data, what's your confidence, those kind of things. Whereas with moral claims, it becomes very much about the definitions of terms and what sort of predictions you'd make in the world about what behaviors would cause what effect. So there's kind of a split in how the questioning works. Okay, there's my 5 minutes or 3 on moral claims versus science-based claims. Thank you. Thank you, Cynthia. We have your email and we'll be in communication. All right. I see that Love is in the channel and probably enjoying some yummy ribs, and we'll get back to Love. Soon we'll be. I've heard that God is love and that Jesus is God, so Jesus Christ is love. The user in the chat is Jesus Christ, and the one who joined is Love, and they're apparently the same, which I guess makes sense. That's part of the dogma, right? Jesus Christ is love.
Well, God is loving. God is part of, or Jesus is a part of the triune God, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. God, the New Testament is supposedly the loving God.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of what um, Christians and Catholics believe Jesus taught was to love thy neighbor, take care of others, be charitable to others, care for people, give away your possessions to those who need them more than you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So, if this potential guest that we have coming up next is actually the Jesus Christ, if I were to say the Jesus Christ, you know who I'm talking about. What sort of evidence would you want to see to raise your confidence that was true?
Gina, do you want to go?
I don't know if there's anything that you could reasonably do.
Would
Even as like
stigmata matter to you?
a little bit. You know, a little.
Fill this.
I could fake that.
I have a splinter in my right hand that you could heal.
Yeah.
But
You can fill this up with
make a
wine.
camera filter that
By
would
water.
stigmata. You could have that.
you know,
Yeah,
you could
my
raise
water
my
bottle to
sister
fill with
from the
wine.
dead.
Yeah. I mean, of course, there might be really, really obvious things. Oh, yeah. Reed says, predict a 10-digit random number 3 times in a row. 3 different ones, not the same one. Yeah. Hello, Chase. Good to see you.
Hey,
Chase
Chase.
at my interview on Monday. Chase is a really cool advocate of veganism. So like that. Yeah. Abe says, do a miracle live, breaks the rule of physics in a repeatable way. Yes. Future testable predictions was kind of what it comes down to pretty much. Yeah. Smokey apparently knew everything before they found SE, and now they know less, but I bet they also know more or something else. Nope, no problems with my power this week. We did have an outage happen 3 nights in a row. The first one, it was off till 6 in the morning, and the next 2 nights, it was off from like midnight to 6. Apparently, they had some really big thing to fix in my local neighborhood, and now everything seems to be fine. Abe says, SE seems to be a good tool to use on myself to try to achieve that which I think is something about possible best methods to reach truth. Yeah. We were talking earlier in the SE Discord about claims that you agree with. Is that a better idea?
I think it's more challenging. I think I've put this there. It's definitely more challenging because you're invested in something that someone else agrees with you on.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to work hard to, I guess, if you're doing it right, you might go away having to rethink your own position on the same topic. Like if in the process of examining somebody else's methodology, you might find holes in your own on the same issue.
Okay, so drum roll, please. I bring to you love Jesus Christ. Hello. Can we hear you?
Hello? Do you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hello, loves. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. Hello, love.
Hello.
Hi there, Mr. Juggling Lessons.
Yes.
Hello there, Miss Gina, and hello,
Hi.
Miss Rosemary.
Hello.
How is your guys' day? Because I just finished eating some ribs, and there was some best love in my life. I just don't know how anyone can be vegan, you know?
Chase is in the room, and he could tell you all about that.
Who?
Chase Avier is in the audience, and he could tell you all about how to be vegan. Lots of detail.
I don't think you can.
Oh, he could tell you. I do believe he could tell you. Whether you'd buy it or not, that's a different question entirely. Whether he'd be persuasive to you is yet to be seen.
Veganism is it's kind of like a death cult, but it's for another story. But I am talking about love today, sir.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
I think that am I a little bit too loud?
Are you too loud? No, you're fine.
Okay. Look, there was just the other girl, right? Sorry. There was the other girl named Cynthia that you guys were talking
Yes.
with, right?
Yes. Cynthia was just here. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you said was like, it's kind of funny because that's what I was originally trying to get into about love.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't expect that she would just come out and start talking about all that stuff. But that's kind of a ironic thing there. But to latch on to what she was talking about is that uh, hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we hear you
Oh,
fine. I was muting a noise source. Sorry about that.
oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, it's okay. What I want to get on was I was agreeing a lot with what Cynthia was talking about until she said that there is no supernatural, and I actually believe that there is a supernatural. Supernatural exists.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the many consequences of basically us loving each other, loving the universe, and spreading this uh, love. Everybody can be enlightened and gain these superpowers, although they're not to be trained for, but they are essentially a really good evidence to demonstrate that such a God exists, such a love exists, and that the
Okay.
Eastern philosophers they're not wrong. They're telling the truth, but it's just Western philosophy that's so bogged down to like their own dualistic thinking, where they worry about suffering, they worry about how to reduce suffering instead of actually looking at their own Western religious counterpart,
Okay.
because they wonder about how to improve happiness, not to the question of how to reduce suffering, like
Okay.
a lot of atheistic philosophers, or
Okay.
what
Can you
is
put up
pronounced.
with my very Western left brain thinking and give me a claim that I can type in this?
Yes. What do you want me to do? You want
Create a
me
claim
to?
that I can put across the bottom to describe the claim you're making. What's the title of your thesis?
I think that Eastern philosophy's concept of enlightenment proves God's existence. I think that should be good.
Concept of enlightenment.
hmm And that's the kind of love I'm talking about.
Sorry, not very great at spelling today, apparently. Proves God or proves
Yeah.
God's existence.
Yeah.
Proves God. Cool. All right. Gina, do you want this one or is this one mine?
Oh,
Nope.
no.
Gina's shaking her head, going, "Nope, nope, it's yours." All right, fine.
Come on, Gina.
Now, I'd like to define some of these terms. I guess the first thing would be, what is Eastern philosophy's concept of enlightenment?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, Mister. Uh, what is your name? Juggalo, right?
Juggling lessons, or
Juggling
Dali,
seconds.
or Hey You, or Beardy. What any of those?
Okay, I'll call you Dali. All right, Mister Dali.
Cool.
You got a great beer, by the way.
Thank you.
So
it goes down this far.
Oh, that's
I can
pretty
touch
deep.
my belly button. Go ahead.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Geez, that's a great question because a lot of people have a misunderstanding of enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
especially like a lot of new age stuff. But anyways, to the point, right? It's hard to put it into particularly words, but I think the best way I can describe it is it is the natural state in which you're born in, like when you were a brand new baby, where you are
Eastern
just
philosophy's concept of enlightenment is the natural state in which you are born in as a baby.
hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Hold on, yeah, hold on.
I'm summarizing too soon. Apologies.
Yeah. um well, I mean, well, there's not really much to add on to that, right? Just maybe a
Okay.
little bit clarification here and there, and that is like it is essentially pure awareness, if I can describe it like that, is
Okay.
the natural state in which you are born in as a newborn baby, where you have no concept of like um, two or what is good or bad, but rather you're innate in your own natural.
I haven't
Uh,
even learned to subtract e from pi.
yes, yes, um, and it's that in which we learn about the social construction in which we fill our own minds about the world and form opinions, in which we start to get away from enlightenment. So essentially, when I say people kind of get lost in enlightenment or have misunderstanding, is there's no striving for it. You're already enlightened. You're born enlightened. It's just the social construction within society has muddied the actual waters in your awareness.
Okay. As I get older, does my enlightenment change?
No, never.
Okay, so it
So
really
it's-
wouldn't matter if we said enlightenment as a child or enlightenment as an adult. You're saying enlightenment the whole time we're alive.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Eastern philosophy's concept of enlightenment is something that we all have as living somethings, beings. Proves
Yeah.
God.
Yes.
You define
Absolutely.
God for me.
Yeah. So God is also a very oh, I can hear echoes. Um, so God is a very misunderstood concept as well. God
Okay.
is it's not just me thinking this. I used to say, well, to me God means this, right? But I realized no.
Yeah, we don't give points for or against originality.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter at all. Please
Okay.
continue.
Thank you.
Plagiarism is welcome. It's not a problem.
um, let's see here. God is, as the ancient masters uh, see it as, I'm coming from a Taoist perspective,
Okay.
as God is just another term in which the Eastern philosophers or Eastern enlighteners
Mm.
within Taoism, they call the Great Tao. And also, I think what I'm not really well versed within Hinduism, so maybe the Great Brahman.
Mhm.
It's not when you look at the God in the Western perspective, you think there's some kind of sky daddy. But
Mhm.
once you understand the two concepts from the Eastern, and they mean the same thing, you start to question. Well, we are fed a stereotypical idea of this sky daddy, but it was never that case. And it's this immaterial, universal consciousness that flows and pervades through life itself, and that is the very essence of enlightenment that is controlling you, which is basically the awareness that you were first born in that first state. And that is the enlightenment. Once you have receded from your ego back into this natural state, you are in what a lot of religious texts call unifying back to the spirit, which goes back as the correct, as a direct bridge to God itself.
Okay. You know, when you're talking about enlightenment and you're talking about God, I almost get confused about which one you're talking about. But I guess that's maybe part of your point, that the ideas are overlapping in a strong way.
Mm.
And you know, if they are describing the same idea, it's almost hard for me to say, well, how does that prove? It's sort of like, oh well, it's like saying they're the same thing. Like, am I getting that right?
To understand what you're saying that like enlightenment is kind of like this natural state that is God itself.
When you're describing God and you're describing enlightenment, what you're describing is falling together in my head as an overlapping or same idea. Am I misunderstanding?
Can you put it another way? Because
I can't tell the difference between enlightenment and God in your description. Could you describe the difference between enlightenment as an idea and God as an idea?
Oh. Well, the only way I can put it is like this is maybe you're right, maybe there isn't much of a distinguishment, but the only best way I can really put it is the natural state that we are in, the awareness as the newborn babe that we are born from the mother's. Sorry, that rib is really good. But
yummy ribs.
Hi, kitty. But
yummy kitty too. No wait.
Yeah,
No, pets and no wait.
Whoa.
Man, Chase has got me thinking about. Anyway, go
ahead. Let's see here. The Enlightenment, I guess, is just a very loaded. So now I got to go back to like my own criticism, like Buddhist mentality and stuff like that, because there's some disagreements I have with Buddhism as well, and that is like Buddhists. What do they call it? The Eightfold Path, in which how to actually go about life.
Okay.
I think that to go about life is to actually resolve the inner struggle that we have inside of our minds, inside of our subconscious. That will then shape the way how we think, talk, and move and treat other people. And so, but anyways, enlightenment is like very used in Westerners when they approach like Buddhism and stuff. And so perhaps Taoist term would be stillness.
Yes.
Is this innate stillness that we have in ourselves, in which we can actually be watching all of our egoic actions and the way how he reacts to the world and forms opinions. That is innately in all of us. And so I guess the distinction between that and God is, yeah, you're right. I think there's not really much distinguishment. Maybe there might be overlappingly the same, you know? Because,
Abe asked, because I think you were referring to the ancient masters as a reference for why and how you know. Abe asks, how do you know what the ancient masters thought? What's your path to that information?
Over 1,000 hours of meditation, and also, people don't realize this. It may sound.
So you're not Jesus, you're Paul.
I'm sorry. You're gonna fake me out.
Sorry.
Well,
I want to accept people's answers as to what they say they are, their names, whatever, like that. But in this case, you're acting a lot of polish. That's okay though. Keep telling me about that. 1,000 hours of meditation, and you've got a revelation from what the ancient masters thought.
Yes. So it's 1,000-hour meditation, but it's not just that. Of course, I mean the Tao Te Ching serves as it's pretty much like the Bible in Taoism. What else is there? I don't know what the Hindus use to understand the concept of Brahma, but it from the likes of talking to people who believe in Hinduism and stuff like that, it's pretty much universal in that they don't really conceive God as the sky daddy that's materialized. It's basically immaterial, and the same thing from reading. There's some Taoist philosophers in the past where they just talk about reaching the stillness state, and that that's just the bridge to God. And so it's never anything materialistic per se. It's always material in the spirit. And so when you sit there and you start to wrap this all together, and then you say, well, it's kind of like, and your own experience to meditation and embodying the sayings, the teachings of these enlightened masters we're talking about, you start to realize that God is not the stereotypical material sky daddy. It's rather this immaterial bridge to universal present moment through your spirit.
So I've got an imaginary somebody. I'm going to point. They're going to go right there. Okay, there's an imaginary person there off screen, and their idea of God is very different from yours. You actually have a person in mind, but I'm not going to disclose who that is. And their idea of God is not one that's about enlightenment, but is more and more like the creator God with the authority and maybe big white beard in the sky. And they're asking what's the difference between your God and my God? How do you disprove that my God exists? And by the way, if my God exists, your God is probably not the one. That was their position. That's not mine. But
Right. Yeah.
I'm in complete denial about having that position.
Yeah. I mean, I did completely disagree with that person as well. But the question is, how do you go about like trying to falsify it? I guess.
Either one.
Yeah.
This is the classic outsider test. No fooling around with it. It's just that's what it is.
Let's see here. I guess I mean, I want to start out with like, have you ever meditated or stuff like that? But then again, it's not so much about let's see here. It's not so much about well, you have to meditate correctly, but so that's why it's not so much about meditation per se if you're not doing it right. So he could just say yes to that. So
yeah, the other person says the meditation is neat and good, but it is not about knowing God. They knew God before they meditated. They knew God after they meditated, and meditation wasn't the thing.
Okay.
For them, there was prayer and communication. And maybe you call that meditation. Maybe you would say that what they were doing as prayer is what you could call meditation.
Yeah. Prayer is essentially meditation, although some religious Christians would just say, "Oh, God disapprove of meditation. It's the devil," which is kind of funny. It's just idiocy, because prayer, I think, is just another term formed by the English language. I guess it was used in the past as another term for meditation to get into the natural state of awareness as a bridge to God. And so prayer is essentially, I believe, no doubt about it, was meditation. It's just being diluted the way it is today to mean many different things by modern thinkers, I guess.
Okay. So it seems like multiple people can meditate and come to completely different conclusions.
No, you see, that's where I think, that's where I said you have to meditate correctly.
Okay. So how do I know that I've meditated correctly?
You have to essentially. That's a good question.
This is like almost a trap question, because if you say, if you come up with the same answer that I've come up with, then you've meditated correctly. It makes it like viciously circular. And so I'm looking for some way to test the meditation that isn't just the same result.
That's a great question, and I think that's a question that I've been trying to answer along the path of my own meditative journey.
Cool.
Because I think a lot of people have also a misunderstanding of meditation. You can start to see all of this come together. Like, a lot of people have a misunderstanding of a lot of the fundamentals of the spiritual science.
Okay.
And so I'll start with this. Like, meditation in scientific notation, in psychology, psychology is kind of like a soft science, so one could say that could be pseudoscience. But however, in psychology, they have coined a term. What do they coin it as? Mental awareness, I think, or something. Whatever they coin it as, something like that. But whatever it is, it's essentially they've taken pretty much what is known as meditation from a lot of people in the East, I think, and also Westerners who actually have done it for many, many years. And they have measured into a great degree in which people can actually mitigate, not eradicate, but some of them, I don't know, it could be eradicated, but mitigated a lot of their mental illness to help ease them in the process. So that's as much as I would say. And so that kind of leads into like there is a correct way of going about it, because I do believe that a lot of mental illness is the problems of our own ego grasping society, but never learning how to be still.
Aha.
And what?
Well, it sounds like you're making a claim that we could follow what you're saying and help alleviate mental illness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, there's a claim of usefulness. I'm all into it.
Yeah.
Tell me what we should do to improve mental illness.
Yeah, absolutely.
I give you the wand. You're the czar of mental illness now. For what do you change? How do you implement this?
That's one of the major focal points of why one of my major focal studies that I actually read into a lot, because when I realized during my meditative journey, I realized that the reason why I got into it is because I didn't really have health insurance. And so I needed to actually find a way to help and not cure, but mitigate my own, issues with my own body. And the more I don't think about things, I realized it affected the way how I actually work in my body. And then so I find someone who I actually can call master, and he taught me how to meditate. And so when I started meditating, all these baggage, I realized that there's so many misunderstandings of meditation. But anyways, what I wanted to get at was that my own way of opinions about the world is so stupid, because the world is just this plain, unopinionated reality, and that all these troubles and problems that we fight against each other was born out of this egoic, opinionated selfishness, never from stillness. And so when you ask me, and this is a very, very strong subject that I'm really interested in, because I believe meditation is the cure to mental illness. And once we can solve mental illness, we can have world peace. Love is what I'm trying to get at. So no more murderers, because to this very day, all these industrial revolution, all these technology, we never really solved murderers, rapists, but yet all these are born from the mind. And so
we never solved murder and rape.
Yeah, we never solved it. We just have this societal consequential grasp against these people, but it never actually stopped people from becoming murderers in the first place. I mean, some people may stop it because
if murder and rape was getting worse over time, would that affect your confidence here?
I mean, what do you?
If we were to look at statistics and say, yeah, murder and rape are getting worse decade by decade, would that matter?
As to what?
Would that affect your belief that murder and rape could be fixed by meditation? Would that increase your confidence?
I would say, oh man, I understand what you're trying to get at, but I think that I might have to say no, because if we can never really solve how to implement stillness, we'll always have this one guy who will just get lost in his ego at the end of the day and start going on murder spree because he has this wild opinion about the world. And so we will never ultimately solve it, but we can mitigate it by universally coming together.
Yeah, the mitigating, that's the one I'm thinking about. I'm thinking, completely solve it is
that's what I'm getting at.
High reach. So I'm thinking, what do we do to mitigate it? And then I want to be able to measure our results.
Mm-hmm.
If we could look and see statistically, is murder and rape getting worse? Is it getting better? That kind of thing. And then,
Yeah.
compare that against how many people are meditating. See if that's possibly a causal factor.
Absolutely. I mean, we can.
If the number of people meditating went down, but murder and rape went down, would that change your opinion?
Well, I mean, this depends on the context, right? Are we like at a societal level where we actually start to implement meditation as a whole, or is it just
some of us, right? Some of us meditate.
Well, yeah, some of us.
We could maybe measure the prevalence of meditation in the world.
But like,
see if it's falling.
But look at the school, right? Like, it's not something that's like you learn to like implement your daily routine, like brushing your teeth, or maybe take a walk outside as a minimum exercise routine.
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is essentially not yet at the level where it's highly recommended and also highly implemented in your day-to-day life. It's still this I wouldn't say obscure, but rather it's just not well adhered to at a consistent level at a day-to-day routine.
Okay.
And so that's what I mean by like it depends on the context, because if like maybe we gain 15 meditators out of the existence of 300 million people within the nation,
mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think that the point that you're talking about, how murder rate is going up or down, it's going to affect much,
Only in the sense of if we had a solution and we were to look at the prevalence of that solution, we could maybe measure its effectiveness, that kind of thing. Now, if the notion is that the solution hasn't been tried well enough that we could even start to measure it, okay, I get it.
Okay.
With that, we are out of our 25 minutes. There's a pun that I just wanted to do. That's a gray area. Okay, anyway.
Hey, I just want to say something. Magic
Please.
is real. Please look up Michael Grubb. Please look up
Grubb.
Yeah, Michael Grubb.
Grubb.
G-R-U-B-B. Two B's.
Two B's.
Yeah, Michael Grubb.
Not one B. Two B's. That is the answer, not the question.
Yeah, and also look at MPUSA. So it's just directly the way it sounds. MPUSA. All acronyms.
What are we looking at MPUSA for?
Oh, MPUSA, they're able to actually make people blind to be able to see through exactly the teachings that the principle I'm going through.
Okay. So you have a way to improve people's sight.
Well, I guess, yeah, you can say that, but making people see again directly from being blind. Or, and also MPUSA, Michael Grubb, he can do this thing called aerokinesis. I know it sounds woo-woo, but like nobody has ever able to actually debunk him. Every person who's a skeptic or anyone, what's going on?
Oh, when I'm looking at, somebody has a claim that's a medical claim. It's like debunking is not even the point. It's not a debate question. It's, here's the people. These new ones can see.
Okay. Well, I just want to point out to like Michael Grubb, every skeptic that went to him are actually left never saying that, he's fake. They're saying, well, something's going on. And I think that this man is either a master of coincidence or something is going on. And so check him out. And also check out my own master, Grandmaster Wolf. Nobody is able to debunk him to actually when he burned a brand new water bottle being cut from a wet
a brand new water Kings bottle. 18?
Huh?
He did a First Kings 18 burned water? Is that what I heard?
Oh no. I'm sorry. Forget about Grandmaster Wolf. But
Okay, that's
yeah.
not what you mean. Sorry.
Just check out Michael Grubb and MPUSA. Those two folks are
Okay.
impressive folks. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, man.
Thank you. Thank you, love.
All right.
Wow, welcome back. Hey, everybody. Let's see. Where's that banner of the promotion ticker? Yes, you can join the StreamYard. Copy that and paste. Okay. Any feedback? Did I miss something in that? Was there a direction you were hoping I was going to go down, and that I didn't?
There was a question that suggested in the chat. How would this be affected by people who might not be able to meditate? Or the people who can't, who have tried like different ways of doing different traditions and just can't.
So some people are not able to. So I suppose they would not get the mental health benefits. I'm just guessing. I don't know. But yeah, that'd be a good question. All right. We have time for at least 2 more callers. Two if they take the longest possible time frame. I do have to bail out hard at our 2-hour mark. I'm going to go be interviewed on stereo by Matthew Havertz, an SE creator from Utah.
Yes, he's our Latter-day Saint.
Yes.
Is that a pre-recording or are you going live?
It's a live thing. It's a live thing with an audience that can press a button and record a comment that we can then play at the right time. It's not so much interruptive, but sort of like when there's comments, we can get them at the break, something like that.
I'm a member of stereo, but I haven't tried it yet.
Mm-hmm. I dislike stereo because I can't install it on Windows or Mac or anything like that. I can only have it on phones, Android, and I guess iPhone, whichever the Mac thing is for that. I can't tell whether that's laziness or there's an intentional marketing decision to only allow it to operate on mobile devices. But I have to take this extra cable, this one, and plug it into that device over there and route it through the mixer a different way so that I can this with the other thing and over here to with that. And if you look at that cable, you'll note that it has one too many tip ring sleeve. It's a special one. So.
It's an adapter.
Yep, it's an adapter. It has to plug into the tablet this way so that I can talk on stereo. Because Windows? No. Stereo. Windows. Anyway, but that's an existing stereo limitation. That's fine. We'll live with it. Anything else going on in your days?
Eugenia, any busy day for you or?
I tried to take a chill day. I watched Anna and the King on YouTube. Right, I got some exercise in, and right before I got in here, like minutes, I took 5 minutes to meditate.
Nice.
I don't think I've ever been good at meditating. My brain jumps around way too much.
I have been meditating on and off since I think 2006. It helped a lot when I had Lyme disease back then. Yeah, I was hiking with a bunch of friends in a park near here and picked up a hitchhiker. And yeah, so I had Lyme disease for a couple months.
Does that mean you can only drink Coronas and margaritas?
I'm sorry?
Does that mean you can only drink Coronas and margaritas?
No. No, that's not that kind of Lyme. I'm talking LYME, Li.
I
Yes.
see. What are the
Um,
symptoms of Lyme disease?
It feels a lot like chronic fatigue and arthritis combined. You're tired all the time and you get random pain like out of nowhere.
Just
And
everything
then,
broke?
I'm sorry?
That's just like neurologically everything's broken.
Yeah, pretty much. And actually, like, meditating helped me, like, maintain, like, my energy level while it's being treated. So it's not just meditation alone, but other interventions like antibiotics and pain medication too. So it's everything together, and I was all set in a few weeks.
Yeah. I am for one very, very thankful for antibiotics.
I know you are.
Yeah, antibiotics turn out to be my friend.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Hopefully they'll keep working for us for a while.
Yeah. That's a bit of a concern.
I know there are antibiotic resistant strains of some diseases.
Yeah. I might even be willing to defend the claim that we have reached peak usefulness on antibiotics, and that for the foreseeable future, they will be less useful to our grandchildren.
Yeah, because we've wasted them. Kind of connects back to your conversation about veganism. Like that's one of the things that we do that makes them less effective is we just feed them to the animals that we're raising.
Just prophylactically, because what could go wrong there? This is not a problem.
There's no consequences for human life from that.
Yeah. Talk about yes, but short quarterly profits are way up. Must be good. That's how most moralities worked out, right? Based on the effect on quarterly profits.
Yeah, short-term gains.
Yep,
it's all about short-term gains. Like the Ford Pintos, you remember them when they exploded?
Yeah, that was good.
That was all based on a short-term gain. They said it's cheaper to pay off people who've been injured or killed than to fix the problem, and it was cheaper until that memo got leaked.
Yeah. There's that. Yeah. Just, can't hide that stuff in the modern age. Not that that was in the modern age, but there were computers at least. And,
there were computers, and it was like the 70s-ish.
Continuous forms and enormous number of people reading through lines going, crosswords. Lots and lots of it. So, we are delighted to have guests call in. You can talk to us about SE. You can give us a claim that we will try to ask you questions about to get to the end of. So far, we haven't had that happen today, but it could happen. And you could ask us to have a claim if you would like to practice street epistemology. So any of those are all good. So if anybody has any claims and you would like to call in, go right ahead. Did anybody bring a back pocket?
Well, we could go back to my thing from earlier that we were talking about. Yeah, if you wanted to keep going, but that's just fill time.
Yeah, tell us about your claim that I'm going to try to summarize. Steelman it back to you. That in the past we have had the notion that we give previous executives of the country some immunity to prosecution because of the danger of the next administration going after the last administration in an abusive way. And that right now we may have crossed that line a little bit, and that's a bit of a concern. It seems like there might be a threshold at which you would want to cross that line, and the question that you're having is whether we've legitimately crossed that threshold or not.
That's where I'm at, because as much as I had issues with the last administration, that doesn't mean that we should be crossing that line right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What would be an example of something that would unambiguously cross that line for you? And
If
you
I
don't have to
knew,
use existing presidents. You could make up stories about false or presidents way past. Like Jimmy. What if Jimmy Carter something with something from Ford?
right? I would say this is kind of applies in this case, but in general, for this issue, if the person had taken very sensitive documents, which it's not really clear if they took sensitive documents, but like certain kinds of sensitive documents that would be dangerous if they're not kept within the government for the certain period of time, that could be a reason, potentially. But my confidence that would be a reason is lower than if they were sharing secrets that they shouldn't be sharing after they're not in office. That could be an issue. There's not a lot that I think.
If we actually had evidence that they had shared these things illegally, inappropriately across some kind of a line, then that would be a good
possibility.
Okay.
Well, the other thing I think I had mentioned last time was that impeachment was the normal process for when there is wrongdoing on the part of the president.
Oh.
And so like that, but that doesn't apply when you're out of office. So
right, impeachment only happens when you're in office, and impeachment's a political choice.
Yep, it's a political question.
So if you have political dominance, you have immunity.
Yeah. And that basically, like, if you can get impeached and then once there's a trial, they could disqualify you from office. But I don't know that. I mean, he got impeached twice in this case, but like compare that to Clinton, who was impeached for what, like, it was lying under oath, which seems like a very odd thing to be impeached about. But that's because it's a political question. They can.
Yeah, they can impeach you over any particular thing. Yeah, I think he was also impeached about something Lewinsky with the something of the didn't or didn't have sex. And what does sex mean in Alabama?
What is the meaning of is?
What is the meaning of is? Sure.
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, is it true we've never had a successful impeachment? We've had 4 impeachments. And all of them, well, I suppose with Nixon, there was an attempt, but he avoided it by resigning ahead of time.
Yeah.
Clinton was, he won, or
he won.
Wasn't. He was impeached but not convicted, whatever that term is.
Correct.
And then Trump twice impeached and not really convicted in either case. Correct.
Yeah. So impeachment is kind of like establishing the charges, and then you have the trial. So
right. Impeachment is like indictment, and then conviction is a separate question. So we've never had a successful impeachment in that regard, I guess.
For presidents, so there's been others. I think some.
For lesser offices, lots and lots. I'm sure.
Lesser offices, because that's the only way you can remove Supreme Court justices too.
Okay.
I can't remember. There was like one that was really famous, and I do not remember all the details on that. But so it's like I hold that as a very high democratic norm. And my question is
the only way you should get rid of somebody.
Well, that's for the Constitution, but like after they're out of office, that like prosecuting your basically it's the idea of like prosecuting political enemies. It breaks down the democratic system.
Okay, so
and then
once somebody in the office, basically they should be immune for what they did while they were in office.
Yes.
Okay.
That would normally be the case.
Outside of that time frame.
I would say anything from before they were in office. Yeah, before they were in office, I think would be less of an issue. But I think with this particular case right now, that could still itself cause the optics problem, but I don't think that there's any legal issue with doing that. And then the question is like, what does he do outside of office? Because he's very famous for, just going along the line of legality, right in that gray area.
Yeah,
So-
if we keep the concern to what is related in what I understand is the existing search warranty thing, it's about retaining documents that he wasn't supposed to retain, not returning them when requested, and then they went and found rather a lot of them, or at least enough for some 2-digit number of boxes of them. So they found some, I guess.
Yeah, I think they had asked very nicely twice. And and then when it was like, I mean, the government should be getting those papers back. It's just like, it's created a legal mess.
Yeah. So what is your intuition that we should just take the papers back and let him get away with that? That's okay?
I think it's enough to get the papers back and let him stew.
Okay. If you found a copy of the papers somewhere else, where would that be to be a problem? And where would that be to be not a problem? If you found the papers in an editor of the New York Times, how about that?
That would be a problem,
That would be a
potentially.
problem. Okay.
Depending on
for your standard,
because like
not for like whatever the Justice Department is thinking. I'm asking you.
Yeah, that. But at the same time, I'm also thinking back to Watergate, New York Times versus Sullivan. Like, it's a problem, but it's also freedom of the press. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Does that change if it's Al Jazeera or Russia Today?
I would say that's more of a problem than.
Okay, because it's foreign journalism.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like what? It depends on what the content of the papers is too. So with the New York Times versus Sullivan, that like it was very embarrassing for the United States, but it exposed an issue that was going on.
Okay.
I can't remember the exact details, but that was the famous case that said like they don't have to give their sources.
Right. Okay. What if I think at the beginning of the Ukraine war, it became kind of obvious that we were reading the Kremlin email. What if our CIA showed up some of the documents that he had, some of that information showed up in Kremlin email? Would that be enough to say no? Now you have to actually arrest him or something?
There would be a question.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like. You'd have to probably have more evidence about how it got there. So depending on who the email came from,
they might have gotten it independently from. Okay.
Right. Could have been independently. Could have been through layers of people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you definitely have to show like a chain of causation in some way to connect it back. So just the fact that like those happen to be papers that he had is not enough.
Okay, because the papers might have been disseminated through other channels, so just a few connections like that wouldn't do it for you.
Yeah.
Okay. What if you didn't have evidence of its distribution, but you had evidence of an offer made?
Still not sure that raises to the level.
Okay.
Yeah, because again, my it's like I have that normative. Like remember I said like I was dropping a little bit, but like I'm still above 50%.
Yeah.
Like, I'm at like 6-7. So
okay.
I think even just knowing it's just an offer, it's more of like it's probably more important to expose that as what happened than to prosecute it. So just to make publicly say, hey, we found out this happened.
Okay. What if somebody from a lesser office, let's say a governor of a state, had done similar things with similar classified documents? Would you have a different line for them? Would you have a different amount of tolerance?
I don't think they'd have the same. But I think that, yeah, there's a different line of tolerance because we do regularly prosecute governors for things that they do in office at the state level, sometimes the federal level. But it's like it's a different set of, like, each state has its rules around removal of a governor. So it's going to go on a state by state basis what fits the norm for their constitution.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And really, I'm again not trying to look at your estimation of what the Justice Department would do, but what do you think should be done? What is Rosemary's rule if she were in charge? And I think I hear a lower standard for governors than for the president, and probably because of the potential for abuse.
Yeah, and the potential for risk. I think the risk with governors is different than president, because like they're not going to have some of the same information as far as national defense or.
Okay, so the president's got much more access to classified information for being commander in chief than a governor would, because they're in the chief of their National Guard or something like that.
Right. Yeah, they're not necessarily going to have that same level.
Okay. So you need to give the president more immunity because they have more access to more important information.
Not even that. It's more of what is the norm for. It's like this is more of a norm.
How do we establish that norm? How do I test what that norm is?
I'm making the distinction based on the survivability of the democratic system at the federal level.
Oh.
And so
So this isn't about a threat to an individual president. This is a threat to our ability to elect a president if some kind of corruption occurs.
Yeah, so it would be, yeah, like kind of that idea of like where how do you deal with corruption without creating more corruption? And then like, yeah, would it impact the freedom of future elections depending on how people use the justice system? I don't think we've broken through that yet, but I think that at this point it's a risk of like, if you don't act, what kind of damage will happen versus what happens if you do act.
Okay. I'm going to do something.
And really, I'm not sure where their line is.
Out of the room for one moment and come back in.
Sure.
I want to see if we can fix the static on your microphone.
Okay. So.
Good. And you can keep me company till she comes back.
Okay.
Yeah. She's got a bit of static in her mic. It's kind of like.
I heard that put in the private chat.
Yes, I saw that. Indeed. And I threw her out because you're back.
Okay.
That sounds so much better. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, I just had to get my email open, pull it up.
Okay, good. All right. Before I got distracted by static, where were we?
I was saying that I'm not sure where the line is right now between the risk to democracy if we don't do what we just did versus if we pursue what we just did.
Okay. So if the norm had been different, what in the past would we have done? If let's say that the norm, I'm going to go two different paths. One, that the norm for immunity was much lower, so we were hitting people up much sooner, much easier. Would we have thrown Hillary in prison for mishandling things as Secretary of State?
I think that given the way that he was talking, that if the norm had already been lowered, he might have gone after her. That's like, and like you were thinking, like after 2016. If the norm were already lower.
Boom. Okay. And then if that were the case, what do you think? What's the abuse that you fear would occur?
I would say a lower sense of health in the democracy. So, like, it risks. Yeah, it's like I don't want to say risk to freedom, but at the same time, like, could that create a situation where somebody is more of a dictator versus following democratic principles?
Okay, so if we prosecute Trump, does that change Biden's power?
I wouldn't say that it would change Biden's power. I think it creates a situation where someone else would come in and say, well, look, this happened in the past. So, like, crossing the Rubicon type of thing. Like, oh, well, that was already crossed. So I can prosecute such and such person who previously held the office. Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to think of other countries where this is a likely problem. And I'm thinking about, obviously, Putin has almost no viable opponents because all of their opponents end up being shot on a bridge or thrown in prison or poisoned and there's a big old long list. Some of which are deniable and others of which are just undeniable. So is this the kind of system that you're afraid of would occur?
Yeah, something more like that. I don't think it would be as extreme because we've had a long-standing democratic success, but the fear would be sliding into that.
Okay. What is the downside if we grant greater immunity? If we just set the norm at, no, you can't go after Hillary. She's not even close. She could do it 10 times worse. It wouldn't matter. No, you can't go after Trump because he could have declassified all that stuff if he'd wanted to. So he's immune to this, and we're just not going to end it. And unless we have direct proof of him, selling it to somebody, maybe even not then. So if we really, really harden up that immunity, what's the downside of that? What's of this other side?
I think the downside would be somebody who would find a way to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure in what form that would take, but somebody who's unscrupulous might have a way to take advantage of that.
So Trump wins the next election.
Yeah. What would he do next?
Kind of unscrupulous, I think. Yeah. But that's me messaging, right?
Yeah.
So Trump gets away with it, has immunity for this, and gets in office the next time. Do you think Trump could do bad things because he has that immunity? Do you think there could be a downside to that?
I think, especially since he has the opportunity for another term, that could create it. Like, I think he's probably the most corrupt administration we've had since Grant, because Grant was a fairly corrupt administration.
That was, if Trump is 10, what was Nixon?
9.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I would say I would definitely put Nixon a little bit lower. I think
That's
I don't
fine.
think that there's a huge difference,
but
close.
Great.
Lower but close. I actually think just the kind of things that I know about the Grant administration, I think that was the last time we had a seriously corrupt administration. And he wasn't a bad guy. He just had a lot of people who utilize his administration for their own purposes.
I'm thinking that generals in a war, especially like a civil war, get real used to doing things because they are expedient, and never mind all those pencil pusher goody two shoes people. Like, I can just flash my badge and the scattered.
Yeah.
When generals come in, boy, things get done, but look out.
Yeah. As I think that was when the Tammany Hall kind of Teapot Dome, that was, I think that was the era when that happened. So
Tammany Hall in New York taking over all of the essentially the municipal contracts with payola going in all the directions, and if you weren't corrupt, you couldn't participate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that kind of stuff hasn't continued. It's just that the levels, the famous levels where we remember it.
Sure. It's a separate issue, and we're going to be running out of time here. If somebody else wants to call in, you got a few minutes, and otherwise we're going to be winding this up. What are other things that we could do? This is taking you outside of your claim entirely. What are other things that we could do that would influence up or down the level of corruption? What could we do that would make a meaningful difference in either direction?
I think more transparency would be something we could do.
Transparency. I like it.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing.
Corruption, right? That transparency equals less corruption. Yeah.
And effective transparency, because we often say we're going to be more transparent, but then things aren't as transparent as they should be.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing it goes outside of the legal, but like the ability to have those conversations and that to rebuild the political like our political community right now, because there has been a lot of breakdown. And I think that's where my claim is coming in, is like, at what point have we had so much breakdown that norm no longer matters? And to rebuild political community would make that norm feel more healthy again.
Kevin brings up campaign finance reform. What do you think about that?
Oh, yes, please. A lot of that. We have a lot of ways that money gets in. So
if I gave you that wand, what would you change in campaign finance?
I would get rid of Citizens United. That would be
okay. You would just legislate past the Supreme Court on the Citizens United question, or you would change the Supreme Court. I'm not sure how do you.
That would take a change.
The legislature is the one that can override the Supreme Court by just making a new law, changing the law, right?
Yeah, they can't normally. There are ways that they try to do it. Sometimes it works. But I think it's going to take a change to the Supreme Court. But that would be something like taking the teeth out of that would do a lot.
Okay. So for clarity for the audience, I think Citizens United was the notion that money equals free speech, and therefore you cannot put restrictions on how much money any group can spend supporting their own free speech, as long as it's not tied to a specific candidate for a specific office. I don't know. So there's some limitation where you can have campaign finance limits, but it essentially allows super PACs.
Right. Yeah. It's like a backdoor for super PACs in a sense.
Okay.
Yeah. The idea that corporations are people. Well, they are legal persons, but they're not, they shouldn't have that power of speech. It's basically giving them the same power of speech, but like more of it because they have more money.
So if it was a person with that much money, with that much speech, it wouldn't be a problem. But because it's a group of people with that much money and that much speech?
Oh, well, it could be a problem if it's an individual person. But yeah, that with Citizens United, it was the idea of like a corporate entity being able to use that money from lots of people and then hide who that money came from.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
Kevin suggests 100% public funded campaigns, which I think is something like not having any donations go to politicians. Politicians no longer being able to accept donations of any kind.
I think so, yeah. And also that basically taxpayers would say, like, how you have that check mark where you can give $3 to the fund. And it would just be funded out of that.
Ooh. Oh my. That would be small numbers, weird things.
Yeah.
Sounds like it would make super PACs much more powerful than they are today. Because if we can't make somebody who's not connected to the campaign not spend $100 million, then the paltry little amounts that they would be able to spend legitimately just wouldn't even show up on the radar and
Right.
such.
Yeah, you'd have to basically say nobody else can campaign except the candidate.
Yeah, and I think that goes against free speech, because
Yeah,
I think it's not okay to say I can't talk on a topic because that's a topic that a politician has adopted.
well, I would say for political campaign. So, yeah.
Right. What if I don't tie
Yeah.
it to a political campaign, but I tie it to the same
I guess,
wedge issue that somebody is campaigning on? Am I supporting, or am I trying to influence that election?
potentially, but that's a good question of like how far does that go? At which point?
I don't want
But
somebody
public,
to talk about abortion.
Yeah.
I don't want that rule. I think that's no fun. Anyway, thank you all. I think we've run out of time on this one. I appreciate that, Rosemary. I've learned a lot about your position. You got me thinking about immunity. I think you have moved me in my position away from yours, but that's where it is.
I mean, up or down. Like right now, I'm just wavering because I'm not sure where I fall.
Yeah, I think I've been wavered toward less immunity.
All right.
That's okay though. That's not a problem. Yeah.
I mean, technically, legally, they're not immune. It's just what we do. We don't prosecute. Yeah.
Yeah, I really dislike those kind of rules where it's on the books but it's not prosecuted. But that sounds to me like unequal distribution. I'm not sure. There's an access to justice issue. There's enforcing the law fairly to everybody. That if you've got a law that you only ever use when you really, really want it, then you're not. There's some unfairness in there. So, anyway. I think that means that we're closing out the show. Does anybody have anything else we want to do for the last few minutes? And if not, I just want to ask for people to give me feedback on this. Let's see if I can. There we are.
It's the Epistemology call-in show.
Do we like this kind of thing?
It's the Street Epistemology call-in show.
Okay. Gina's saying nope.
Gina says, I think it started out, I like the calm tones. I like that.
I like that. Yeah. I like this song probably more than I should. Probably more than it's worth. I think it's because I'm especially fond of making Mark Stahl about it being crazy.
Street Epistemology.
That. Anyway.